Hello, hello, JJ DiGeronimo here, and I am very excited to meet you here. As you know, I do this every week, and I am so honored by the guests that join me, not only because they do amazing work in the world, but I love the authentic conversations of their journey and the work that they're doing to help other people illuminate their path. So, with that, I want to introduce you to Brenda Winkle. Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Hi, JJ. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
There's so many things we could have talked about today because your work is just incredible. You really open doors or help others open doors to their enlightened wisdom and path. And I love that. But we really settled on breath as a sovereignty and the ways that you can use breath as sort of a guide and a tunnel in a lot of ways to really get to a deeper sense of self. So, what does sovereignty mean to you?
So, when I say the word sovereignty, what I mean is that I have full awareness of what's my energy and I have full awareness of what your energy is, but I'm not connecting the two in a way that I might have in the past. I'm an empath, an intuitive, a psychic. And for me, it's very easy to feel, sense, and actually experience other people's energy and emotion inside my own body. So, sovereignty means for me, this is mine, this is yours. Now let's create something beautiful.
Wow. I mean, that is really self aware. I know that your gifts came on early in life and you were sort of asked to turn them off. And then
Mhm.
later in life, you turned your gifts back on. And so, when you turned your gifts back on, was this a boundary you had to learn, or is it something that has come through another lesson?
I think it's both and. So it was absolutely a boundary that I had to learn. In fact, my early mentors who are still in my life taught me a lot about protecting my what they called my aura or my energy field. And so that's where I learned things like the zip up method, which is just simply like zipping up your energy field to create that sovereignty in your auric field. And then as my studies and my work evolved, I had a lot of other lessons around how I was still picking up the subtle energies and emotions of people around me. And so it was sort of a trial by fire type of situation where I had enough skill that had been taught to me by my mentors that I knew I needed to do something different. So a lot of the techniques that I share and teach have come from my own experiences of trying something and seeing if it works.
So interesting. So, how, I'm an empath and I pick up messages sometimes just sitting and talking to someone, whether I'm in person or on the phone. What is the value or what are the benefits that you've seen of really separating your energy and allowing sort of that space between the two?
So, if we're not separating energy and emotion from other people, it becomes very difficult for us to understand what we think, what we believe, what's important to us. Because as an empath, and you probably can identify and speak to this too, JJ, it's easy for us to mistake someone else's agenda as our own. And so, as we're making important decisions about how to spend our time, how to spend our money, how to spend our lives, if we're not actually making those decisions for ourselves and we're under the influence of other people, whether we know it or not, we can end up in situations out of alignment. And that feels like I don't know myself. I've lost myself. It can feel like anxiety. In fact, I don't have scientific proof of this, but I would be willing to bet that a lot of the people who are suffering from anxiety probably have empath abilities that they don't know about. And there's a constant push pull between what their internal compass is saying is right and true for them and what the people around them that they're being influenced by are saying is right for them. And that causes conflict inside the body.
Wouldn't that be interesting to really investigate? I mean, we all know friends, and I'm sure we've each had pockets of anxieties in our experiences. And I think it's undeniable that we carry and create decisions based on other people's energy. I think where I was sort of getting caught up for a minute is I was thinking that this is how you move through life, is separating your energy out from others. But when you're doing your work with your clients, or if you're being a psychic for others, do you still create the same boundaries?
Again, it's going to be a yes and answer. So if I don't create that energetic sovereignty, then I can't hold space for someone as effectively. And that's the piece that a lot of us empaths don't really get at first. I was among the people that it was like, I don't get it. I don't know why I shouldn't like merge with these other people. But the truth is, if we're going to hold space for people or get messages for people, if we're psychic or intuitive, or if we're leading people in some way, if we don't have a sense of sovereignty, we are not thinking clearly. We are not making the most aligned decisions.
What wisdom. What wisdom. I think this is so important for everybody to hear, not just people that are in the, healer, light worker, mystic evolution of humans here on the earth, that are using their gifts to illuminate the path for themselves and others, but every listener that is trying to harness their energy in a way that's effective, meaningful, and grounding for them.
Absolutely. And so this comes up a lot for founders, entrepreneurs, and business people when they have a really strong team and the team is advising them to do these types of things inside their business. If they're a really strong empath, they will take that kind of advice as gospel. And they'll do those things all the time, having this little knowing inside that for whatever reason, it's not actually aligned for the business. And so, especially as we talk about spiritual entrepreneurs, this is a really important step in creating the business that you want to lead.
It's very insightful. I like thinking about this, about creating sort of this bubble fortress water around yourself so that you can have the wisdom and space to identify where the energy is pushing and pulling.
Absolutely. And I like to think of it as something that we can use with nuance. So you use the word fortress. So if I'm going through an airport, I'm absolutely going to have an energetic fortress up. I don't want to have all of the energy from the thousands of people in the airport. But if I'm in a conversation with my close friends, then I don't need that same level of protection. And so I'm going to need to intentionally remove any barrier that I might have put up energetically in order to be close. And so this is a yes and again, where we want to use some nuance so that we're not blocking or building walls against people that we want to have really heart-led conversations with.
So beautiful. I think this is so important. And I know that you have a lot of techniques to get there, but breath is a cornerstone for you. So can you talk a little bit about how we can use our breath to start creating this container for ourselves?
Absolutely. So the reason breath is so impactful is that it connects the conscious mind with the subconscious mind, and it also releases, literally releases the stress response in the body, meaning you can bring yourself out of a stress response just using the breath. And so for all those reasons, this is why people will say, take a deep breath, because even one really deep, slow breath resets the energy. In fact, if we try it right now and we just inhale deeply and then exhale with the mouth, even that just feels so nourishing. I feel like I can think more clearly. What's your experience of even one breath?
It is altering, I would say. Right away, right when I started breathing out, I was like, oh, okay, I can just be in this moment.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. It brings us back to presence. And that's the piece that so many of us desire. We want to be present, and yet we're future tripping, or we're living in the past, or we're what ifing. And all we really need is more presence. And I love breath because it brings me into the present. And so, even if you were to set a timer, let's say for 2 minutes on your phone, and just allow your eyes to close and breathe deep and slow for 2 minutes. It'll be life-changing if you were to do that every day.
I can see that. I can see that. And how do you like just think about somebody that maybe is intertwined, right? They're in a relationship, they're in a partnership, they're working with someone, that they're working on a project together and they're now recognizing, oh no, I don't have sovereignty. I don't have
Mhm.
that space. I am so intertwined with this person and I have energy that's showing me that I need that type of space. So
Mhm.
how do you use the breath? How do you use some of the tools to sort of start to create that separation of energy?
Mhm. Or a little spaciousness, right? So, creating spaciousness, sometimes we need to actually take physical space. If you are in someone's presence and they have a very strong influence over you, sometimes you might need a physical break. And that might mean, like, let's say if your partner is also your business partner, it might mean that you need to go outside and take a walk by yourself to create some physical spaciousness and then breathe. So, if you're really intertwined with somebody, it's important not to ignore that you might need physical space. If you're energetically intertwined with somebody, a lot of times you can create the sovereignty that we started talking about simply through some deep breaths. Now, in that case, it might take longer than 2 minutes. It might take maybe 5 or 6 minutes for you to really be able to start releasing whatever is theirs and getting clear on what's yours. And again, this is a little bit like you're going to brush your teeth. We don't brush our teeth once and then feel like we've checked a box for the rest of our lives. We brush our teeth every day, twice. And so we can treat breath in the same way, where we're always coming back to the idea that I can take a breath. I can create sovereignty in my system now.
Mm, I can see that. And I can see just creating that space, using your phone as a tool to remind yourself on a daily basis that now is the time to breathe. Because we all get these apps and whatever, but I find I have to put it like right in my calendar, make it reoccurring, and I don't dismiss it until I do it. And
Yes.
so with the breath, do you encourage visualization? A lot of people talk about cutting cords or those energetic ties, like just starting to like unravel them so that you can create sort of that energy release.
You can. Absolutely, you can totally do that. There's nothing wrong or bad about that. Um, as an energy healer trained in multiple modalities, I would say if you don't have training, just stick with the breath. And if you have an awareness that you need to cut cords, even if you're not an energy healer and you just think to yourself, I feel like I'm connected in a way that's not good, you can absolutely offer some prayer or meditations, maybe asking for support and ask for those cords to be released. Maybe you like to call on Archangel Michael, or maybe you just offer to, have all the cords that are not of love released from me at this time. You can absolutely do that. And that'll be really, really profound and helpful. The thing that I like to be cognizant of is if we don't know what we're doing with energy, stick to what you do know. And in that case, it would be like what we're talking about with breath, maybe just breathe. If you have training in energetics, absolutely use the breath to accelerate the cord cutting and the releasing. And it can be a both and for you.
I love that. And, I've been on a journey myself of just meeting with so many different energy practitioners like yourself. And just so many people have added a little bit more to my toolkit, a little bit more. So, talk a little bit about the work you're doing with business owners, with leaders that are using intuition and the breath work, because I feel like this crossover of using energetic tools to help leaders is so instrumental and really starting to take the forefront.
I feel like it is too. I feel like we're at this time on our planet in our evolution that we are ready for consciousness to integrate into business. And in a lot of cases, that means bringing in more feminine energy into business, feminine being the energy, not necessarily exclusive to women, although it could be women, but feminine energy is the beingness the flow, the intuition, the emotionality. And when we can add those things to our businesses and we can couple it with ethical practices in our businesses or spiritual businesses, then we can start to really gain some traction. And the reason that it's important to add ethical practices to our businesses is that if there's any part of us that feels out of congruence with what we're teaching or selling or asking people to do, it's creating a little energy block in our business. And so in my view, ethical practices are good because they're good. They're called ethics for a reason, because they're like guidelines of how to treat other people, how to exist in the world in a way that cares for others. But each of us is going to have our own ethical code. And so I would invite you to get clear on what matters to you as far as your ethics, and then really live and lead from there. And the breath is so important in this because, again, it connects the conscious to the subconscious mind. So we don't have to worry about shifting beliefs if we're relying on the breath to come back to the present moment.
It's just so timely. I mean, today we're recording on YouTube for, the Feast of Mary Magdalene, and she talks a lot about how we are all connected, trees, animals, people, grass, and that everything we do has a ripple effect and a frequency. And I feel like for me, it's taking me some time to really just realize that I want to vibrate and work at a particular frequency. And I think of that frequency or that radio station of what, volume I'm at. Am I at 97.5 or am I at 102.7? Are my choices going to keep me at that radio station, or is it going to drop me down to a lower radio station?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is my North Star.
Yeah, I agree. And to be really transparent, when I first transitioned from full-time teaching into this full-time, because I've done this work for now over 10 years, but I've only done it full-time for 3. And when I first transitioned, I sought business leaders who were really present on social media. And for some reason, I didn't think about whether or not their values and their ethics matched my own. And I lost my way a little bit. And it wasn't until I got to a certain point in my business where I looked at the things I was talking about and the things I was doing, and I realized I'm out of integrity here. If I really value diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and I'm not centering that in my business, no wonder there's a kink. And so whatever it is that you value, I love your idea of a North Star, JJ, because I think when you can put your values first in your business, everything else lines up nicely behind that.
Yeah, and it's very easy to make decisions, very easy on people, topics, content, because I'm like, does this raise my frequency or does it pull my frequency down? And it's very quick, because before my mind can even answer, my conscious self answers.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then it's interesting because you are so accustomed to feeling what it's like to be in high vibration that you can sense the moment there's a shift. And so if there's a listener that isn't as accustomed, just notice, at the end of the day, are you still feeling good? Are you still feeling positive? Are you still feeling expansive and excited about what you're doing? And if not, just moment by moment, roll back your day to the moment where it shifted. And I guarantee you'll find it. Martha Beck calls that rolling back the cat. And when you find that moment that it shifted, almost always there's something that was out of congruence.
That feels so good. That feels so good. And Jill says hi. She's on, she's listening, and she said, I
Oh,
love the frequency. Hi, Brenda.
hi,
So
Jill.
I love these live videos because we can have interaction, and I think it's so spectacular. So I want to know a little bit of, like, if people are feeling this and they're like, I need more help on this, kind of what do you help people do and how do they connect with you? Knowing your links are below, but like, how can they work with you? And then 2, I heard you just say last week that there were some kind of key dates that happened. I think 2012 was big for me. 2016, 2020, no,
Mhm.
2020, and now you just said
2008.
20,
Mhm.
yeah, 2008 is another big one. You said 2025 is big. So I want to hear about how people can connect with you and then round out why 2025 you think is going to be one of those monumental years for many people that look back on this year.
Beautiful. So the hub of everything is the website, brendawinkle.com. And there has all the social links and anything else that's happening. And so I would invite you to go there and then connect out from the website. So 2025 is known as the year of the yin wood snake. If we look to feng shui and we look to our brothers and sisters in Asia, and the year of the wood snake means that we're shedding things that are no longer aligned. And because it's a yin year, that means that it's not as active, which is why a lot of the journeys that we've been going on have been so deeply internal. So a yang year is very energetic, it's active, there's a lot of doing, there's a lot of accomplishment. A yin year is very internal. And so it's asking us to really shed things that are not aligned. So if you know that you're doing something that doesn't feel good, that doesn't align with your values, this is the year where you get to shift it. And also, it's the year where you can claim the life you really, really want to be living. And we all have this ability to be the author of our own lives based on the choices that we make and the thoughts that we allow ourselves to think. It's not that like you're never going to have a negative thought. You are going to have a negative thought because we're humans and humans have a negativity bias. That's not the problem. The problem becomes when we let the negative thoughts be the whole playwright in our minds. So when you notice a negative thought, stop and just say, delete, 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 cancel, and then put in the thought that you want, and then move from there. And if people wanted to work with me, there's two ways. I work with people one-on-one, and I work with people in my group coaching program called Your Yes Filled Life.
Brenda, yes, yes, and yes. I love that. And I said it, and breathe
And
for sure.
breathe. Yes, and breathe.
Well, this has been so nice having this time with you. I can't think when I roll back my day, another 22-minute period this today that's going to be as powerful as this
Mm.
conversation. So I'm really honored you joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you for holding space for so many light workers and healers and mystics. The work that you're doing is changing the world.
Mm. I love it. I'm so honored. I've been tapped on the shoulder to do this work. And as many of you know, you can find these live conversations here at YouTube. You can find it over on the podcast, Together We Seek. And if you want to join many of these practitioners, you can jump into the community, Together We Seek.online. So thank you, Brenda. I look forward to seeing you here online again and following all your amazing work. With that, we're signing off. See you later.